because it says we're live, but I don't yet trust it. And as Public Enemy always says, can't trust it.
Nah.
But we will, at least for now. Oh boy, what a group of games to get to. Welcome in. It is the Audible, and it is Cecil, Lammey, and Sigmund Bloom with our Week 11 recap here. And we're going beyond the box score because we have to. And this has been an incredibly crazy, busy, hectic week, Bloom.
Yeah, there were some games. Again, we're seeing this trend in this November, October of these games that we see sometimes in September, trap games or teams finding their identity, some teams learning who they are. And also, we're seeing players, you talk about windows. We're seeing some windows closing. We're seeing some windows opening.
Windows abound when you talk about Cowboys and Lions. I don't know if that makes sense, but let's get into it. 35-27, the final score. Cowboys get the win. They're 6-4. Dak attack, another 400-yard game for Dak Prescott. This time, 29-46, 444 yards, 3 touchdowns, no INTs. Michael Gallup, huge, 9 for 148. Randall Cobb, 4 for 115 and a touch. Tony Pollard, 4 for 44 and a touchdown. Ezekiel Elliott gets 2 for 28 and a touchdown, receiving in addition to 16 for 45, rushing with 1 rushing touchdown. Amari Cooper, 3 for 38. Oh, Blake Jarwin, 2 for 38. Jason Witten, 5, but only 33 yards. But they get the win. Takes 8 fourth quarter points to do that. But the W's all that counts.
Yeah, this is a game where, we're seeing the Cowboys' identity really as an offensive team at this point. And we did see Darius Slay do a good job on Amari Cooper. So what you see was Dak Prescott playing so well at this point. I mean, he's really peaking in terms of his effectiveness. He just goes to Randall Cobb. He just goes to Michael Gallup, who had a circus catch in this one. Tony Pollard made an impact early in this game and late in this game, getting a 2-point conversion. And really, they just moved the ball with ease. The best the Lions could do maybe is get a sack at the goal line and force them to take a field goal. That was the kind of day it was for their offense. And we're going to keep targeting the Detroit defense. Well, next week's Washington, so maybe not next week. But you get the point. Pollard, just a player we're going to keep in the back of our minds in dynasty leagues. You can see his explosiveness. Zeke got the touchdowns, but wasn't really the superior back in terms of effectiveness or efficiency in this one. You also saw Blake Jarwin get a few catches. So Jason Witten's value is capped. If both of these guys' production was in one tight end, maybe one with Jarwin's athleticism, we'd be a little more excited. But look, we can see that it's going to be Dallas and Philly in a dogfight. And this week, Philadelphia gets New England. We'll see what happens there. Dallas gets them next week.
On the flip side, the Lions with Jeff Driscoll, not the pushover. They've been looking for a ground game, and Bo Scarborough, who they call up off the practice squad, Bloom. They get rid of Paul Perkins, finally. And he gets 14 for 55 and 1 rushing touchdown. Now, most of that was on a 23-yard run, but this is production for them compared to what they've seen from Ty Johnson, who gets 2 for 6 in this game and then 1 catch for 0 yards. Jeff Driscoll was the second leading rusher, 8 for 51, 1 rushing touchdown, and then 15 and 26 for 209 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, no INTs. Both the touchdowns, MJJ, Marvin Jones Jr., 4 for 43, and 2, Dammy Amendola, 4 for 47 in this contest. J.D. McKissick, if you had him in as what that flex, you got 3 for 40. As a receiver, 3 for 13 as a runner. Kenny Galladay, 1 catch, 34 yards. TJ Hawkinson's not doing anything, 1 for 6. So a game effort. You saw Scarborough make some plays, and Driscoll wasn't terrible. Sacked 3 times, no picks. Yet the Lions fall short.
You saw Driscoll and the Lions put up some fight in this game. Matt Patricia. Still, this team is playing and pulling in the same direction for him without Matthew Stafford, even though Driscoll did have a great fantasy line. And we saw, again, he's athletic. He can get some points as a runner. He absolutely can keep plays alive and take some shots downfield. So we'll see next week against Washington. He's a solid quarterback too, super flex. Last week with buys, if you're just covering Patrick Mahomes saying, well, I'm going to take somebody off the waiver wire, that's not bad. If you have Driscoll against Washington next week, Bo Scarborough belongs in the NFL. Paul Perkins does not. And we've got that straightened out, Cease. And Bo Scarborough, he's a good, tough runner and someone who's going to stick around. I think that now he's finally been given an opportunity in a regular season game, and that's going to last. Marvin Jones is lasting with those touchdowns. You got one long catch from Kenny Golladay, but you knew you were rolling the dice with him against Dallas in this one. Teams aren't going to throw Byron Jones. Dallas defense has some question marks, though, because this was a game where you saw them easily moving the ball, easily an offense doing what they wanted, but still a competitive game against Jeff Driscoll. So, again, against New England next week, some questions there. Detroit, though, going to Washington. And the other question here, Cecil, is right before the game, we hear that Matthew Stafford, it's a 6-week injury. It's something maybe more like a compression fracture, not the transverse process. So, at some point, does this team consider IR for him?
Yeah, any concern, super quick, more of a Thursday night show, but let's expand it a little bit. You're so relaxed on the bed. So I want to stretch out, right?
Yeah.
Any concern that Zeke hasn't looked Zeke-like in a couple of weeks? Last week, somewhat forgiving, right, facing the defense that he did. But this week, should have beat up on the Lions on the ground.
Yeah.
And they didn't.
Yeah, and again, Pollard looking explosive, looking like a playmaker with the ball in his hands in this one. So, yeah, I wouldn't say that Ezekiel Elliott looks sluggish, but certainly he isn't ripping off the big gains like we've seen. You do have to be concerned in terms of him delivering top 5 overall pick value right now. And you have to also think rational coaching, and they're getting rational quarterbacking, is using more Tony Pollard.
Let's get into the next game, Jacksonville and Indianapolis, 33-13, the final score, and lots to get to here. Certainly Nick Foles' return, 33 of 47, 296 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 INT, sacked a couple of times. DJ Chark gets both of the touchdowns, 8 for 104 and 2 TDs. Chris Conley, the guy he recruited to come to Jacksonville, 6 for 58 in this contest. D.D. Westbrook only 4 for 32. Keelan Cole, 4 for 41. Leonard Fournette only 8 for 23 on the ground, and it was 10-7 at halftime. So it's not like, they're down 21 points in the first half and had to start, passing the ball all day. They just chose not to. Leonard Fournette also 7 for 34 as a receiver here. Nothing else from anybody else, but Nick Foles' return is pretty lackluster here, Bloom.
Yeah, really, this welcome back party turned into a bit of a funeral. Maybe not totally for this team season, but certainly to get beaten this soundly in Indianapolis, it doesn't look good. They're going to get Tennessee next week. And you just saw a touchdown to DJ Chark, get things going, and then it was a penalty, or it was a sack, or it was D.D. Westbrook getting tackled short of the sticks, or Kenny Moore making a play. They just couldn't get anything going on offense as the Indy running game started to take this one over. Some deep shots to DJ Chark. DJ Chark, a clear number 1 receiver. That's something to take out of this. But there's an interception on one. And just stalling out too often. We did see Chark get another touchdown in garbage time. Foles putting up some numbers in garbage time, which is something to think about because of the schedule Jacksonville has against those pass defenses, even when it's not garbage time. He should be able to ring up some numbers. Leonard Fournette, same story as usual. His PPR numbers keeping him afloat. Still disappointing not getting the touchdowns. Even Chris Conley, D.D. Westbrook, Keelan Cole. I mean, some of these guys may have some spike weeks because of the schedule, because of Nick Foles' aggressiveness as a passer, but there wasn't a clear second option here. Whatever numbers they racked up was more of a garbage time issue. Now Jacksonville's more of a spoiler at this point. I know Cecil was getting us revved up if we can't have a Steelers triumphant second half narrative. It's not happening here, probably not the way this team played, but they can play spoiler against Tennessee next week.
Sometimes you wait for someone to get an opportunity. Sometimes you won't shut up about them on this show, and then sometimes you just give up on them. Kind of sounds like what happened to Jonathan Williams.
Right.
A player that even during his time with the Denver Broncos, where they chose him over Kyle Sloter and fans were in an uproar, and they paid him $30,000 a week for 10 weeks to just sit on the practice squad. Jonathan Williams always had that talent, more so than Alex Collins, in my opinion. He just never gotten the opportunity. Anytime he did, it didn't look great, and he usually had some ball security issues. But today, Marlon Mack goes down, hand injury. Bloom, let us know the latest there. 14 for 109, rushing touchdown for Mack. So here comes Jonathan Williams, who gets 13 for 116 in this. Also a catch for 31 yards, that natural talent coming through. Jacoby Brissett was back, 148 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 INT, 1 rushing touchdown for him, 1 rushing touchdown for Nyheim Hines, 3 for 11 and a touch, and then 3 for 24 as a receiver. Eric Ebron, 4 for 27. And, Marcus Johnson, 4 for 38. Nobody played him. Zach Pascal, maybe you did, 2 for 17. Chester Rogers, maybe if you're like a Colts fan who wanted a super deep what the heck flex, 1 for 11. So they win big. They win with defense. But they win with this rushing attack with 200-yard rushers on the day. One's going to be around next week. One might not.
And the Mac issue with the broken hand, I believe they play Thursday night against Houston. So we're not going to see Marlon Mack next week. I don't know if we're going to see him. He was ruled out pretty quickly. If we're going to see him again this year. And this might have been more about Jacksonville's run defense, just really thin here. Again, facing Derrick Henry next week. That's not a good look. Not a good look to be gashed for over 200 yards by the Colts running backs in a week that you're going to have to face Derrick Henry. Poor tackling. And Marlon Mack made some moves on a touchdown. Poor tackling. Brissett taking a lot of sacks early in this one. Their offense was bogged down in the first half. Then they get a 3rd and 19. Jonathan Williams, I think that might have been around the time or even maybe before Mack went out. You can see Williams running compact, powerful, some good burst. We've seen him bounce around to so many teams now. He's been down here in New Orleans. We're always trying to make a narrative that this is going to be when he gets some momentum going because we liked him so much, better than Alex Collins. Remember, he had that foot issue coming out of Arkansas. He might have been a 2nd-round pick. Now he's going to get his chance. Jordan Wilkins came in with an ankle. Nyheim Hines did get a touchdown here, but Nyheim Hines is a satellite back. So I have to imagine that we're going to see Jonathan Williams get his opportunity. We'll be talking about him on the waiver wire show. Jacoby Brissett, a leader, he runs in a touchdown. He keeps another play alive forever and a touchdown to Marcus Johnson. So this is a no-name passing game right now. Brissett's not going to necessarily lift it. And really it would take Houston and Sean Watson balancing back to get him out of his shell. Because this team has got to be feeling good right now with momentum, opposite of Houston's momentum. So even Eric Ebron, Jack Doyle, this is just nowhere to look for part of the passing game, but still a team that can win games, still a team that can win division, go to the playoffs. And it's kind of a dress rehearsal for the division title next week at Houston.
Bills over the Dolphins, 37-20. The final score. Bills are 7-3, and Josh Allen threw 3 touchdowns today, 256 yards passing. Had a rushing touchdown, 7 for 56, and touch there as well. Passing touchdowns go like this: Smoke. John Brown, 9 for 137 and 2 touchdowns. Dawson Knox, 2 for 32. The other receiving touchdown. Cole Beasley gets 4 for 38. That's enough. If you're starting Cole Beasley at PPR, we kind of know the level that you expect, and it's close enough. Devin Singletary was a play because 15 for 75 on the ground and a catch for 4 yards as well. And with Josh Allen vulturing those touchdowns, well, that's kind of what you get. Also with Frank Gore still getting 11 carries, only 27 yards this time. So the Bills get the win. They do it in rather large fashion, but it was by keeping the foot on the gas in the second half.
This is that ceiling game we've been waiting for from John Brown. We love Smokey. In his game, silky smooth, and picking on Nick Needham and others. Can we even can you name another corner on the Dolphins roster? Xavier Howard on IR, but that's what we're looking at here. So that's something to keep in mind. Odell Beckham next week. Come on, Odell. This is going to be your week, right? It was certainly John Brown's week. And it's been Josh Allen's year, even though it hasn't been a year that showed the strides forward in terms of situational football accuracy that we hope for. It is a step forward in terms of wins. And he's not just picking up where he left off in terms of fantasy, because those floor games aren't happening this year. Schedule helping. Gets Denver next week. That'll be interesting, Cease. So you've got John Brown making those plays downfield. Devin Singletary not involved enough in the passing game. So a bit of a disappointment, kind of like Philip Lindsay, speaking of Denver, where he had a good day running the ball, but it didn't really have fantasy results because no touchdowns, no huge plays. Team settling for field goals early, and then you start to see the touchdowns come. Josh Allen running one in, Dawson Knox getting one. We're going to be hearing more about him in the future as long as he stays healthy. And even though the Bills, the Bills aren't in an echelon above, like last week they showed Cleveland. Probably next week they won't look like a clearly better team than Denver, but their position, if they can make their layups, I don't think Denver's a layup, but it's a game they can win, then they're going to go to the playoffs.
All right. Miami Dolphins not going anywhere. Kind of like Kalen Balazs, 9 for 9. He did have the rushing touchdown if you had him in. And even with that opportunity, and even against a Bills rush defense that was reeling coming into this game, Bloom,
Yeah.
Balazs was like a running back 3. That's what he was. That's who he is. He's not good at football.
No.
But at least he got the rushing touchdown. Jakeem Grant, big return, big rushing touchdown. Well, not big, but 7 yards. Anyway, he got a rushing touchdown. Fitzmagic, 323 passing. That's about it. Most of it to Devonta Parker, 7 for 135. Alan Hearns, newly signed, 4 for 53. Patrick Laird, 6 for 51 in this one. Grant also gets 3 for 32 as a receiver. So here we go, the Dolphins. This is about what you got.
And this was an uncharacteristic game for the Dolphins in the sense that they have been competitive in the first quarter, the first half, often this year. But the Bills actually came out and took it to them early in this one. You did get that Kalen Balazs touchdown, but overall, their defense was smothering Miami early in this one. But hey, you saw them get a touchdown, and then they immediately onside kick. The one where the kicker kicks it to himself, then they get a fumble. Alan Hearns, who got an extension. You did see Devontae Parker, as you said, as the game went on, when the game was really basically decided, Parker put some good numbers up. So if you still played him despite the matchup against Tre'Davious White, you were rewarded there. We did see Patrick Laird. He just looks like he wants to run guys over out there once he gets the ball in his hands. So that's fun to see. Look, if they decide to move on, and I know Mark Walton will be back in a few weeks, but if they say, okay, come on, Balazs, you know what you're going to get. Let's see what Laird has. Something to think about, something to watch there. Jakeem Grant scoring on a kick return touchdown. I know the Steelers would love to see that. Also as on a carry, kind of an end around. And Miami's, I don't know, Cease. I mean, Cincinnati's bad, Washington's bad. They're not going to get the number 1 pick, but it doesn't look like Tua is going to go number 1 anyway. They're going to Cleveland next week.
Yeah, let's not talk about Tua. That's depressing as all.
Slept with a football under his arm as a kid.
This game takes it from you, man.
Yeah,
it does. It does.
High wire act.
Let's move on to something really exciting, like Broncos football. Exciting off the field. And by the way, take this as a Lassie bark or not, Bloom, and I won't get in trouble for saying this because I've thought about how to say it.
Okay.
Because there are idiots out there that come to training camp for like a day, sit where the fans sit, and yeah, I'm a badge snob, and then proclaim themselves insiders and guarantee you that all of this talk from Jason La Canfora's report is completely false about the Broncos players. Let me just say that report wouldn't be there if at least there wasn't something. You can't come to training camp for 2 days and call yourself an insider. I don't care where you cover the team for or what have you. Like, be there every day, talk to people every day, and then know that, hey, and even the Broncos themselves, you've heard some players say, oh, it's BS. We love Vic Fangio. And you've heard other sources say, well, it's like any family. You're going to have little dust-ups. Yeah, but you can't say 100% guarantee this is false. That's BS. That's bunk. People that say that and aren't here every day are just trying to sound big on Twitter. That's the bottom line. So yeah, you've got some things swirling with this team. You got the Drew Lock situation kind of swirling with this team. And, in the Jason La Canfora report, and La Canfora is one that, sometimes has reports that you can't believe or shouldn't believe. I'll put it that way. There's probably some smoke to that fire, maybe not as much fire. I'll tell you more off the air, Bloom, but there's probably some smoke there. If you were reasonable and not trying to sound like a big boy on campus on Twitter, if you were reasonable and well thought out, you would know that there is smoke there. Doesn't mean the fire's as big as La Canfora was reporting, all that kind of stuff, because there was stuff in that report that simply isn't true. But Bloom, I'll tell you more off air. Let's talk about on air. This team had the Vikings. They're down 20-0. The Broncos were up 20 points, and they lose the game 27-23, the final score. In spectacular fashion, this team limited the Vikings to 7 points in the first 3 quarters. 7. That's it for a team that hadn't lost at home and averaging like 29 points a game at home. So here we go. Brandon Allen, 17-39, 240, 1 touchdown, one INT. The interception is not his fault. It's Noah Fant's fault for not continuing the route. Noah Fant, 4 for 60 in this game. And for some reason, Rich Scangarello on a team where he's got Philip Lindsay, where he's got Royce Freeman. Some reason Rich Scangarello still wants to give Noah Fant carries. He had 2 carries for -7, including one on a key third down, as this team folded in the second half. Cortland Sutton doesn't fold, but when you're down at the goal line and you run a couple 3 plays and you don't have Cortland Sutton in on any of those plays, that's why you lose. Like, you don't throw it up to Cortland Sutton in a situation where you need a touchdown to win because a field goal doesn't do anything because Brandon McManus missed a field goal. Bloom, it is a Broncos show.
Right.
But Cortland Sutton came through. He could have come through more if this team would know how to call plays. Tim Patrick back 4 for 77. So they clearly get that second receiver that they need. And we know that the secondary of the Vikings is where you pick on. Phillip Lindsay, 16 for 67, still not enough. Royce Freeman, 8 for 31, still too much. Andy Janovich gets the rushing touchdown, and then he gets an injury to his elbow that's so severe they won't even show the replay because it's gruesome. Troy Fumagalli, 1 receiving touchdown, and nobody started him. So the Broncos have some issues. They have some issues on the field. They have some issues off the field to varying degrees. And here we go. This complete an absolute embarrassment. I think teams were 99-0. I think that was the graphic on
last
TV.
99, yeah.
99-0 went up by 20. Now it's they're the one. The Broncos are the one out of the 100 now that lose after being up by 20 after 3 quarters.
Their fourth quarter deficit or allowed to come back loud.
Yep, and no fourth quarter touchdowns in 6 weeks.
Yeah, so, this team could tell themselves a story about how they should be pushing towards the playoffs, and maybe it's one and done. You did see Brandon Allen, and like you said, if there's the big takeaway from this, from a fantasy perspective, it's keep targeting that the Minnesota secondary. Seattle, Detroit. I don't know if Stafford's going to play for that one. The Chargers and Aaron Rodgers in Week 16 against this secondary, because you saw them make Brandon Allen look aggressive. For a little bit there, Cecil looked like he was confident, just chucking it downfield, expected good things to happen, and they were happening. And they easily could have had a bigger lead than 20-0 in this game. The running backs, you saw Phillip Lindsay running with burst. You didn't see the big player, the touchdown here, so it was a bit of a disappointment. Andy Janovich, Troy Fumagalli, these are the guys that gets the touchdown, not Lindsay, not Royce Freeman. Cortland Sutton looks fantastic. Like you said, Cease, there should be a play or two. They were running these 50-50 type balls that were relying on a receiver. And again, that's Sutton if you are going to throw that kind of ball. But there wasn't anything in play design or play calls, I thought, to give Brandon Allen an advantage. And they had just used his running ability on that 4th down. Why not leverage that again? Why not get him out in a situation on that last play with 2 seconds left where he can decide to run or pass? But that was very disappointing, because even after they surrendered the lead, Allen really put them in a position to win. He had 3 shots to do it, but they couldn't do it. Tim Patrick making some plays downfield. We chronicled how he was good at Utah, couldn't stay healthy. Noah Fant, I think we can really see who he's going to be as a pro, right? When there's catches that allow his athleticism to shine as a runner, then we're going to sing his praises. But when it's football skills, when it's making tough plays, we're not. And that's just going to be more, maybe again on that Jared Cook track. And going to Buffalo, it wouldn't surprise me to see them win. Wouldn't surprise me to see them give up another 4th quarter lead.
Let's get to the Minnesota side, and it took some time, but they got it going. Not on the ground, although Dalvin Cook did get a rushing touchdown because he had 11 for 26 on the ground, 1 rushing touchdown, 5 for 31 as a receiver. So it's enough. Nobody feels sorry for you if you've got Dalvin Cook. Stephon Diggs held down for a lot of this game until he breaks off a big one, 5 for 121 and 1 touchdown. Sorry, Chris Harris Jr. That was on you, bro. And Diggs also had some other catches that weren't against Chris Harris Jr., but the one big touchdown was, and it was a thing of beauty. Kyle Rudolph, 5 for 67 and a touchdown here. Also, Irv Smith with a touchdown. And speaking of a week that I talked to Chris Harris Jr. about this, like, they hadn't been allowing much to tight ends. That was broken today.
Right.
BC Johnson, 6 for 35, because whoever's opposite of Chris Harris Jr. is going to get a lot of looks, and that was Devontae Harris covering BC Johnson. He got his looks. Some other catches here and there, but this is mainly about Cousins, those 3 touchdowns, the 319 yards, and the 20 fourth quarter points.
For a while, I'm sure watching this, it was always something with Cousins in the offense. It was giving the ball to CJ Ham. I don't know. You got Dalvin Cook and Alexander Madison. It was taking a sack. It was Stephon Diggs free downfield. No, it's a penalty. Now that drives over. And everything they were just finding. Cousins would fumble. They kept finding new ways to stall out the offense. And they even had a fumbled kickoff. And it really seemed like this team was coming unraveled. But they got an interception after the fumbled kickoff to catch their breath. Now you see Diggs making a play. Now you see Cousins to Smith for a touchdown. Now you see Cousins to Rudolph, Cousins to Diggs again. They start making these plays. Not Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook, we could file under Ezekiel Elliott, where we'd say, is he slowing down, at least in the context of this year? Because he doesn't seem to have quite the same snap as he has when he was racking up yards. Wasn't that big of a part of the passing game in this one. And I guess the big thing here is that Cousins now has a game to point to as a Viking to say, there, I did it. It's like Ed Ogeron getting the win against, see, they actually said LSU beating Alabama was responsible for the gubernatorial outcome here because John Ogeron, he endorsed John Bell Edwards. And after LSU beat Alabama, I was like, yeah, he must be okay then if Ed Ogeron likes him. Anyway, so there's your sports and politics talk for the Sunday. But, Denver's defense for a long time, Shelby Harris, where'd this dude come from, Cease? I mean, for a long time, they were really making the plays. Now Minnesota, you're questioning their credentials as a playoff team for a lot of this game. Now Cousins has that game going into the bye to be a little more confident. If this offense gets Thielen back and they become more dangerous, if the defense can start to play to their talent level, you look at what they have left after the bye: Seattle, Detroit, the Chargers, Green Bay, and then finishing with Chicago. So an interesting season for Minnesota, but for the first time this year, I think we'd say it's looking up for Kirk Cousins.
Saints and Buccaneers next, 34-17, the final score. Of course, it's the Saints. Drew Brees, 3 touchdowns, 228 yards passing. Michael Thomas, 8 for 114 and a touch. Jared Cook, 2 for 33 and a touch. Ted Ginn did something besides drop passes, 2 for 14 and a touch. And raise your hand if you thought Traquan Smith would be a cheap play in DFS. Now put your hand down because he's never a good play.
No.
Alvin Kamara's a good play, and he's back 13 for 75 on the ground. And then Alvin Kamara, 10 for 47 as a receiver, helping his day in PPR leagues. That is for damn sure. Latavius Murray, 10 carries, 27 yards, and then a couple catches, 5 yards. Saints rolling this one pretty easy. Offense, defense coming through, making big plays.
Yeah, down here in New Orleans, Cease, after last week, the Dirty Birds come down to the Superdome and really mop the floor with them. It was a nightmare, and you wanted the team to wake up from the nightmare down in Tampa. And even when the Saints are good and the Bucs are bad, that can be a misadventure for them, but all easy, all good for this one. At first, taking the field goal, but then you get an interception and Michael Thomas scores. And now the offense starts to click. Now Alvin Kamara starts getting some more gains in the passing game, gets some good runs against this Tampa defense. Jared Cook, you saw Drew Brees throw one up and ask him to really make a wide receiver full extension kind of catch. And he did it. So the touchdowns come, and that's the offense we expected. That's the Breeze we expected. Alvin Kamara making more of an impact in PPR leagues. Jared Cook, again, making himself look like a guy we're going to stick with as long as they're playing like this. Cease Michael Thomas only had 8 catches. Only 8 today. That's the kind of year he's having. And he's pushing things as someone who does projections every week. Usually you top out at 7 catches. That's about as aggressive as you get for any receiver in any given week. But Michael Thomas is really challenging that. Again, 8 is a down week for him, partially because they got to coast into this one with the help of a defensive touchdown. So New Orleans back on track. The heart rate is back to normal. Nothing to panic about. A team that should be panicking, Carolina, up next.
Jameis Winston, can't spell Winston without I-N-T. Too bad it wasn't right in a row. 313, 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Cameron Brate, 10 for 73. Scotty Miller, 4 for 71. Mike Evans, 4 for 69. Chris Godwin, 3 for 47 and a touch. Peyton Barber, 2 for 11 and a touch. So there you have it. Didn't get a touch as a running back. Jameis Winston was the leading rusher, 2 for 23. Ronald Jones, 4 for 13. And then 2 catches for 1 yard. Ugh. Awful, terrible performance from the Buccaneers today.
It was a terrible performance for the offense and the defense. And it wasn't all on Winston. You saw them come out and really get off on the wrong foot. O.J. Howard had one. I don't know if you heard Sweet Georgia Brown. It was like a catch, uncontested catch on a short pass in the middle of the field. He ended up behind his back somehow, on his back, and then intercepted. And things just went downhill from there. Winston did have a couple of those Jameis Winston throws where you're wondering what he's doing. And the thing was, they're facing the Saints defense without Marshawn Lattimore. Didn't make a difference, really. And you did see when Winston did get going, it was a lot of passes to Cameron Brate. Scott Miller making some plays downfield, actually down at the 1 yard line. And no, not Ronald Jones. Peyton Barber catching a touchdown. Evans had a bad drop that killed a drive as they were just starting to try to get into it. As Winston gets it together in the second half, Godwin has a nice catch and run touchdown. This wasn't all on Winston, the loss, but he was powerless to change the outcome for this team. We're really wondering about Ronald Jones now after being a big part of the passing game. Now it was Cameron Brate more of that check down. Edmonds and Godwin bailed you out like a backdoor cover. And next week, you're looking at the Atlanta matchup. See, 3 weeks ago, we're saying, circle this one, play everyone against Atlanta. Now, Atlanta's been best team in the NFC South the last 2 weeks. So who knows what we'll get.
Who knows what we'll get when the Jets face off against Washington. But we got a Jets win 34-17, and Sam Darnold was slinging it. 19 of 30, 293 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, 1 INT. The touchdowns like this: 5 for 109 and a touch to Ryan Griffin. What, Chris Herndon? Don't need him, especially now that he's not going to be back. Ryan Griffin is that guy. We're back. Jamison Crowder, 5 for 76 and a touch. Daniel Brown, 1 for 20 and a touch. Robbie Anderson did something. He caught one pass. At least it was for 6 yards and a touchdown. Demaryius Thomas, a very apropos 4 for 44, as he's at the alliteration point of his career. Le'Veon Bell is at the why the hell did I sign with the Jets point of his career. 18 for 59 and a touchdown on the ground. 2 for 33 as a receiver. But the Jets were smoking, especially with that 14-point second quarter and 14-point fourth quarter to get this easy win.
Yeah, Jets getting some wins after they give that first win up to Miami and ruining any chance of getting a top 2 or top 3 pick probably. And you saw the team saying Adam Gase is going to be the coach next year. I mean, if they're really telling the truth, I don't know what to feel about that. But when you can lump on Washington, I guess that's something. The first drive has looked great. Adam Gase's first drive the last few weeks against bad defenses, can ring it up, touchdown, even one to Robbie Anderson. He also had a big play called back, but it really was a dud again. They tried to let Washington back into this one, an interception, a fumble. Washington was having none of that. You see Darnold rolling. Now you're looking at that matchup against Oakland next week. You say, That's certainly is a streamer, a DFS kind of play. Le'Veon Bell continuing to ring up the numbers, at least with a good day for this offense, getting a touchdown. Ryan Griffin, Matt Waldman's one of the few people that sung his praises as a route runner going back to his UConn days. Without Chris Herndon now on IR, Ryan Griffin is someone we're going to look at again against Oakland next week. He's got some momentum in the numbers, proofs in the pudding there, proofs in the pudding for Jamison Crowder. He's been putting up consistent, solid numbers. He's obviously on the same page with Sam Darnold. So at least some things about this offense are coming together. And when you play Dwayne Haskins, it feels like the defense comes together.
Yeah, Dwayne Haskins out there. Only 1 pick today, but sacked 6 times. Kid, let the ball go. Let it go. 214 yards passing, most of it to McLovin. Terry McLaurin, 3 for 69. I hate Scary Terry nickname. Kelvin Harmon, who nobody started, 5 for 53. You might have started Darius Geis. And I know people were like super excited, Bloom, to get Geis. Hey, he's back and get him in the lineup. Well, okay, throw him in as like the what the heck flex. And well, he paid off with 1 receiving touchdown, 1 catch, 45 yards, and then 7 for 24 on the ground. Speaking of the ground, Adrian Peterson, 9 for 25. Not a lot there from anyone else, although Jeremy Sprinkle had a touchdown, right? So here we go, Washington. This is kind of your lot in life.
Yeah. Will things break? I mean, is Dwayne Haskins going to be the next Josh Rosen? Probably not. I think no matter how poor Haskins plays, they look like the worst team in the league right now, as we're seeing Cincinnati at least hang with Oakland. If they do get the number 1 overall pick, what would they do with it? But again, 1 franchise quarterback less going into this. The best play of the whole day was a huge bomb that Haskins threw to McLaurin. It was called back by a holding penalty. And then that's something that gave you some hope. Early on, they tried to run the offense through Adrian Peterson. That went predictably poorly. The Jets have a good run defense. They gave Darius Geis a drive here and there. Look, Washington just they did finally score some touchdowns, but I think it was like 14 straight quarters they had without a touchdown at one point in this one. That's just where we're at. And also Jamal Adams is just going to be in Dwayne Haskins' nightmares. He certainly responded since everything that happened around him and getting traded to Dallas. Haskins put up some numbers in garbage time. Geis's touchdown was in garbage time. Terry McLaurin made another outstanding catch later on in this game, by the way. So you're still seeing some good things going on for him. We had a Kelvin Harmon sighting. Again, Detroit's coming. Maybe Washington can get a win to mess up their draft status.
Messing things up in Carolina. Oof. 29-3. Okay, Atlanta. Everyone knows they're going to fire Dan Quinn, and the players are like, we don't want that. We don't want you to do that. So here we go. 29-3. Atlanta gets the win. And Matt Ryan goes 311 yards, 1 touchdown. To Calvin Ridley, 8 for 143 and 1 touchdown. Julio, 6 for 91. Russell Gage, 2 for 32 in this contest. Jaden Graham, no Austin Hooper, right? So here's Jaden Graham, 2 for 23. And that was it for Atlanta. Brian Hill, who we love, 15 for 30 on the ground, and then 1 catch for 8 yards. And then it's Quadri Olison who gets the rushing touchdown. So they tried with Brian Hill, but hell, it didn't matter. They were winning big. They were rolling. This was 20-0 at halftime. Carolina didn't put up any fight. That Falcons defense, my God. Look at all the top teams in DFS this week, Bloom.
Yeah.
They've got the Atlanta defense because they were cheap. But they came through. So let's talk about Atlanta. And is Dan Quinn going to get fired?
Yeah, right. They're playing for him. They relax. I think maybe he handed over some sort of authority to somebody. I don't know. That if I was a Cardinals fan, a Carolina fan, I would need that. We'll talk about that in a second. Look, Atlanta just is relaxed. So Atlanta, you see Matt Ryan having some success, and because Atlanta's playing from ahead, Carolina's pass rush can't just tee off on him. You saw a Kenyon Barner punt return touchdown early to help things going. Russell Gage had a touchdown in this one that didn't hold up under review, but you saw them put together a long drive after an interception. It was Quadri Olison getting that touchdown vulture. Look, if you played Brian Hill, just know Quadri Olison vultured a touchdown, another touchdown for Hill, got taken off the board by a penalty. So it wouldn't have been a smashing success, but if you just played him because of volume, there was something there, although not as much as you'd hoped against a Panthers run defense that looked on paper, at least coming into this one, as vulnerable. You did see in the banged up cornerbacks, we talked about it Sunday morning with Dr. Gene, the banged up cornerbacks yielding. Big day for Calvin Ridley. Julio Jones looked a little banged up in this one, but he was still able to put up some solid numbers. Nobody else emerges because of the game script, even though Austin Hooper's out. And you have Atlanta playing Tampa Bay next week. They could do a 3-in-a-row sweep, Cease. Does that get them something, a ribbon, some sort of trophy?
Does it get Dan Quinn anything?
Yeah.
Okay. Kyle Allen with 4 interceptions today. Even Jameis Winston shaking his head, being like, damn, man, you didn't even throw any touchdowns. No touchdowns, 4 picks, 325 yards passing. Christian McCaffrey can't do everything, but they try with him every week. 14 for 70 on the ground and 11 for 121 as a receiver. DJ Moore, 8 for 95. Greg Olsen, 5 for 57. Curtis Samuel, 4 for 25 in this one. And not much else from anybody else because they didn't move the ball much. They didn't score. And, this is ugly for Carolina.
Cecil, watching Kyle Allen over the last month and a half, I thought, well, I'd rather have him than Mason Rudolph. Well, I don't know about that now. I mean,
I'd rather have Will Grier than both of them.
Probably, or Devlin Hodges. Kyle Allen. I mean, this was just a nightmare day for him. This was a clarifying day, much like Mason Rudolph's night on Thursday night. I think really should close the door of the growth limitations, because you see those flaws becoming fatal against a defense that we didn't exactly consider a murderer's row. There's one early, Vic Beasley had him in the grasp. He really didn't need to throw the ball through a pick. Then you have an interception in the end zone. You have one interception, which is just an overthrow, one of the worst overthrows you'll see by anybody this year. The kind of throw that if it happened during a workout, you'd say, oof, that's kind of some spray it, not say it, not spray it kind of accuracy there. Poor Christian McCaffrey. And you can really see you're imagining the ad campaign for the Panthers next year. It's like Christian McCaffrey takes your ticket when you walk in the stadium. Christian McCaffrey's walking down the aisle, selling you Coke. Christian McCaffrey does everything for this team, but he can't do it all, as you said. But he looks so fantastic. That this team is 5-5 probably has a lot to do with him. He's not an MVP candidate, but he's obviously this team's most valuable player. DJ Moore, at least Kyle Allen can give him a solid floor. Greg Olsen, a decent floor. In this one, Curtis Samuel, not so much. And this team is still at a crossroads, Cease. And I think that there's really 3 doors, and this one now looks scary, the Kyle Allen door. But there's the going ahead with Cam Newton door. And then there's the going ahead without Cam Newton, but not with Kyle Allen door, which I think is probably maybe the most likely, but with who? That's what I'm wondering right now. I think, while this game, I think this team was 5-2. Not that long ago, this team looked like things were going pretty well, but not so much now. They have to come down to New Orleans in the Superdome. That's not going to be fun either.
The year of the backup quarterback has taught us that it is difficult to find a starting quarterback.
Yeah.
Because even if you're Gardner Minshew and you got some hype and mania, and even if you're Kyle Allen and you got a couple good games, it can come crashing. This game will humble you.
Yeah.
In a big way. Like the Houston Texans were humbled today by the Baltimore Ravens. Bloom, I know people may get sick of me and you saying how much we hate Baltimore, but it's really a hate that comes with a great amount of respect and jealousy, honestly.
Envy, yeah.
Envy. As like Tupac said, envy and jealousy and envy coming from my enemies. I totally screwed that up, but that's what it is. Like, I hate Baltimore, but I love their players. God bless America. I love Mark Ingram and I love Lamar Jackson. Can we just skip the Texans side? I wish we could. Mm-hmm. So let's talk Texans quickly so we can glow about the Baltimore Ravens. Deshaun Watson didn't do much today, 169 yards passing. DeAndre Hopkins got most of that, 7 for 80 in this one. Carlos Hyde got a rushing touchdown, their only touchdown of the day in the fourth quarter. Fine. 65 yards on the ground. That's it. Duke Johnson Jr., 40 yards on the ground, and then 2 for 4 as a receiver. Kenny Stills, 4 for 27. Kiki Cutie, 3 for 25. Just nothing here from the tight ends. Just nothing. As Baltimore just humiliated, embarrassed, kept their foot on their throat and kept them down, and we're happy to. They're probably pissed they gave up the 7.
Yeah. If you're Baltimore, you want the Super Bowl to be next week, the way this team is playing right now. And if you're Houston, well, you go down a level in weight class facing Indy, the team that is the best challenger right now in your division. And well, really their level. Deshaun Watson, and see, this is something we've talked about. He has a never say die attitude, which can lead to him holding the ball for too long. And really, this was an uncharacteristic situation for him. I think they said it's the first time he's lost by double digits in his pro career. So how does he react in that situation? Not well. I mean, not that there's a good reaction. If you go more conservative, what's the point? But we've seen him, earlier this year against Jacksonville, he had a game like this. Matt Judon really was terrorizing him. Tyus Bowser. This is a no-name pass rush. And, well, it's a no-name offensive line except for Laramie Tunsil, too. But the point is they were stalling out too much on sacks. There were some times, look, if you got Deshaun Watson, why are you ever – and Carlos Hyde. And look, Carlos Hyde got a touchdown run here. It was when the game was totally over. Why would you ever run on first and second down when you have Deshaun Watson? Ever. There were some drives that stalled out because you're basically saying, run. Okay, Deshaun, now you get a chance to get – like Russell Wilson, Seattle kind of stuff. And – Watson got banged up. There was a point I thought maybe his afternoon was over. He got folded. His ankle got pinned under him. Looked bad. He was right back out there. No limp. If there's one dude, unlike Ben Roethlisberger, there's one quarterback who's not going to dramatize his injuries. Just Deshaun Watson. There'd be a lot to dramatize here because Baltimore's defense frustrated him. There was one play that it was kind of a last gasp, and I know this is an overarching Thursday night type topic, Cease. Was a 4th down and 2. He threw a long bomb to DeAndre Hopkins. It was probably there, and he was interfered with. They didn't call it. Bill O'Brien challenged, and they didn't call it. Now, we did see one in one of the afternoon games, Arizona. They actually flipped a play It was Richard Sherman act. Maybe it's just their anti-Richard Sherman feelings in the league offices. I don't know that they did actually flip one. So if your theory was they're just not going to flip a non-call to a call, well, we saw that. But when that didn't happen, it really just felt like this was going to be a bad afternoon for them. Kiki Cutie got involved a little bit more. Kenny Stills didn't do much. Maybe we'll see Will Fuller coming back. Again, I believe this is the Thursday night game, so high drama there. And in some ways, maybe it's good for the Texans to not have too long to think about this one.
Let's talk about the Ravens, who defensively got it done. Offensively, of course, they got it done with Lamar Jackson, 222 yards, 4 touchdowns, no INTs. They didn't need to do a whole lot because Mark Ingram took care of business as a receiver, 2 receiving touchdowns, 3 for 37, and then 13 for 48 on the ground. You had Seth Roberts get a receiving touchdown. You have Mark Andrews, Mandrew, 4 for 75 and a touchdown here. Gus Edwards comes in, and he gets 8 for 112 and a rushing touchdown. So Hollywood Brown, 2 for 23, right? If you were thinking like me, like, hey, it's going to be tit for tat and back and forth, and nope, it just wasn't. So they didn't need to go to Hollywood Brown. So, sad tear, but big smiles if you're a Ravens fan, because man, they whooped the Texans' ass.
They did. And Cecil, you're a big Bugs Bunny fan too, right? I mean,
of course.
We you remember the episodes when Bugs would be the maestro,
Yeah.
Like that was Lamar Jackson. I mean, that's where he's at in his
and he's
game.
so good he can be like Bugs and keep his hand up there and then take the glove out and walk away, and the hand stays there.
Figaro.
Until you come back. Not until Bugs drops his hand.
Oh man, and the thing was, this game started off a little sideways, right? Justin Tucker missed a field goal. When does that happen? And then they go to a fake field goal. It didn't work. They're scuffling. It's not working. It doesn't. Lamar Jackson, we got this. I mean, he's putting together one of those signature type seasons. Probably going to break the rushing record for a quarterback. You saw it was inevitable. The Lamar Jackson offense has that inevitability about it that the great college offenses would have, where you would just tense up and you knew that one way or the other that your defense wasn't going to be able to stop him. It was with his arm. Mark Ingram doing some nifty things in the open field. If you did play Gus Edwards as a what-the-heck flex, you got that long touchdown. Mark Andrews is Lamar Jackson's favorite receiver. That's good. That's a good thing for fantasy. I do wonder if Marquise Brown is going to be 100% this year. I wonder if this was a great matchup against the Houston secondary. He didn't really come through. Not that he needed to. Everything was working. Everything was easy for the Ravens in this one. And this is your, I don't want to balloon them. I mean, as of this moment, this is your AFC Super Bowl favorite. They're going to face the Rams next week, an interesting matchup to say the least. But the way things have come together for this team on both sides of the ball right now, again, we saw Bill Belichick, I think, shrink up a little bit and coach scared against this team. I'd be scared of them too.
Lots to be scared of, including if you're a Niners fan. Oof.
Yeah.
Okay, Bloom, as we wrap up the show, recording this early, we're not going to recap the final 3 games and certainly not the Sunday night game, but just Arizona's kind of, they're ahead right now, 19-17 as we're recording, New England ahead 70-10, and then Cincinnati down 14-10 to Oakland. So just briefly, what have you seen from those 3 games?
Well, you can just see that Arizona has that divisional familiarity with San Francisco. They're not backing down from them at all. It's all Kenyon Drake, no David Johnson in this one. Christian Kirk bouncing back, drew that long pass interference penalty, getting more volume in this one. Cooper and Fitzgerald getting the touchdowns so far. And Drake, at least in the PPR league, doing well enough. Murray really is the story here again, as he might be arriving as an every week fantasy quarterback, regardless of competition, the way he's playing. Jimmy Garoppolo dishing out. Yes, play your tight ends against Arizona. Ross Dwelly with 2 touchdowns already. Emmanuel Sanders, they say laboring out there. So he may end up giving you a single. He's not going to end up giving you the big game that he had against Arizona the first time around. Actually, it's Deebo Samuel coming through, making some plays. Kyle Juszczyk coming through, making some plays here. And Tevin Coleman and the whole running game not doing much, although Coleman making up a little bit for it as a receiver. The Oakland-Cincinnati game has been a game where we saw Joe Mixon, homecoming game, bought a ton of tickets for this one. He got an excellent Marcus Allen style reverse your field, short, mini version of it. Ryan Finley is struggling, and otherwise the offense isn't doing much, but they're hanging in this game because, well, it's Oakland. And even though Derek Carr's been hyper accurate and efficient, he does have an interception. You have a Josh Jacobs fumble, although Josh Jacobs looks fantastic in this one. Tyrell Williams, Hunter Renfrow making some plays downfield, looking for a little bit more here from Darren Waller. Looking to see Oakland. You think of yourself as a playoff team. You're facing Cincinnati at home. You're going into the fourth quarter and still a one-score game. Not a great look here. New England and Philadelphia, we saw Philadelphia storm out to an early lead, early pass interference penalty, setting up a field goal. They had a touchdown that was originally ruled that was taken away from Dallas Goedert. Dallas Goedert does get the touchdown. And then Philadelphia's offense kind of goes dormant. Miles Sanders looking okay in his audition. We are seeing Zach Ertz not getting much done downfield, but at least getting targets here. It's going to be on Carson Wentz to have to do something because New England's moving the ball consistently. This is not a good offense, but at least through the air, they're doing some things. Actually, it's Julian Edelman. See subtext there that the touchdown was thrown by Julian Edelman. They had some field goals in the first half, nothing going in the running game. James White converting on the 2-pointer. Really this is looking like a game that's going to be an underachieving offensive game. And again, it still sets up, if you're Philly, you lose this one, you fall behind Dallas, but Dallas has to play New England next week. And they are, they're not getting blown out of their building by New England, but there's still some time left to play.
And that is a wrap for the Week 11 recap here on the Audible. We certainly appreciate everyone for taking the time to like, comment, subscribe, share, ring the notification bell, all those sorts of things because, well, YouTube wants to push corporate shows and not independent creators. We've got a huge audience on Spotify, a new audience on Spotify. Thank you guys for that. We've always had a big presence on Apple Podcasts, and we certainly can't get it done without you. We appreciate your love and support. And as always, we want you to stay tuned to follow us on Twitter at Cecil Lammey, at Sigmund Bloom, at The Audible. And as always, you better stay frosty.